attacks from behind to score a lethal blow on her, but Komoko decides she's not going to hell alone and uses her last bit of energy to feed the poor monkey her fluids to finish it off. She levels up just in time to heal and save herself from a fall, before deciding to make all the creatures she has just slain her lunch. Later on, we find our spider friend in a hellscape that even burns her webs. A lava horse appears to fight her, but she can do nothing against it, so she decides to retreat back to her cave. She reveals that she needs to pass through the magma creature to return to the top levels of the cave. She decides that it's time for her to evolve and awakens to her new form along with many new skills that she has gained through evolution. She looks through them and decides to unlock the skill Pride that drastically boosts all her stats. But it causes her taboo skill to upgrade to level 4 and gives her the title Ruler of Pride, which gives her magical abilities, but she has no idea on how to use them. She decides to go back to the hellscape where fireballs suddenly come flying her way. The lava horse reveals itself and begins spamming its one technique until he runs out of mana, then makes the 100 IQ decision to leave his terrain advantage only to get one shot by our little monster. While she's eating, a catfish decide to aggro her, so she just leave, but Komoko encounters another one blocking her path. She mixes her web with poison to do chip damage as the monster tries to eat her, so she gives him a serving of pain to take to hell. She gets ready to take out the other, but it chooses wisely to retreat, so she begins to have her newest victim for lunch. She likes the taste of this monster best of all and decides that she's going to hunt it to extinction. She continues her journey to search for catfish and unlocks the skilled foresight as an eel comes up from the lava to become her next victim. It begins to attack as she realizes that foresight allows her to see into the future and dodge all of its skill. She decides to keep evading until it runs out of mana. The monster uses flamethrower and almost hit her, but Komoko manages to dodge the attack last minute. She returns to the ground as the monster comes from the lava to attack her on land with tail whip. She dodges all his blows until the monster decides to use bite, where our little spider sends a gift to the Grim Reaper, but it revives itself with a new skill, so she busts in his face and spams him with her poison until both lay unmoving on the floor. She levels up and recovers completely and is offered the chance to evolve into a stronger species, so she takes the monster's loot box and turns it into a home to keep her safe while she goes to begin her evolution. She exits the monster looking chromed up and sees that she is now overpowered. With her new evolution unlocked, our little spider's first course of action is to obviously add the creature to her food chain. She spends her points on unlocking a skill that prevents her from dying while she has mana, then uses her detection skill to gain an understanding of everything around her. Komoko begins hearing a voice in her head and realizes that she gained a new brain that will control her body so she can focus on gaining information in fights. We go over to Shun's brother, Julius, who is on a spider hunt inside the cave, where they are suddenly confronted by 3 greater spiders along with a nightmare's child. It tries to attack him, so he dodges and goes in to slay one of the spiders, then uses magic to take care of another, before sending the third to spider heaven. He heads towards the spider and uses magic, but it blocks it, so Julius uses an unblockable skill to heavily damage him, but he returns the favor. The healer uses Recover to make him get back up, to continue the fight, but the spider suddenly starts to show fear, causing it to be restrained so Julius can finish it off with his last attack. It's revealed that the Demon Lord was the one who stopped the spider from offing Julius from her massive castle. We return to our favorite spider. She looks at her new skills and decides to get the Curse Eye ability, then wanders around for a defenseless animal to test it on. She uses the skill, which causes the monster to suffer unimaginable pain until it reaches the promised land. At the academy, Shun asks about the rest of their classmates, so Philome explains that 13 of them are in the elf village and 6 are at the academy, while 3 are out of reach. They ask her for more information, but she says that it's a secret and warns them about upgrading their skills too much. They go outside, where they are broken into teams so they can experience an environment with monsters. The teams are chosen by color and move out on their expedition. They decide to set up camp while Shun and another student begins putting up a tent, but he begins deriding Shun, who's seen as a savior to Hugo's annoyance. Shun goes out to gather herbs, but he hears sword fighting and rushes in the direction to find a fireball shot by Hugo. He tells Shun that he's going to take him out so he won't have any more competition in this world and rushes towards him. He relentlessly attacks Shun, then begins to explain that his subordinates are busy disposing of all the other classmates as they speak. He begins gaining an advantage on Shun and pins him to the wall, but right before he finishes the fight, he gets blown away by wind magic as Philomé comes forward and reveals that she arrested all his men and now will hand out his punishment. She places her hand on his head and uses her avatar state to take away all his stats along with his skills, essentially turning him into a normal human being. Then they head back to camp while leaving him to process all that he has lost. In the night, Hugo sits in his room plotting his revenge when Sophia enters and offers him a way to get his get back, so he agrees. We head back over to our favorite mass murderer. It's revealed that she has now maxed out many of her abilities, so she asks for more, which the system surprisingly gave her. Komoko begins to wonder what is the purpose of her reincarnation and who is the one watching her while she explores the cave. Our little spider now decides to become a magical girl since her new wisdom skill gives her further insight into it. The information brain begins to put it all together, so they decide to test abyssal magic, but she can't control it and explodes. The two brains begins fighting over whether or not they should learn magic when a third suddenly appears and decides to take on the caster role. An earthquake begins to happen all around Komoko, so she decides to go check it out and finds a massacre inside. She goes to have a closer look when a dragon suddenly bursts out from the lava, but it's heavily damaged. He begins to attack her, so she decides to put him into a pack. She fires at him with a barrage of poison while closely dodging all its attacks, then tries to use her evil eyes, but it has no effect. She continues to evade as the dragon charges his flamethrower, but she coats her body with poison to dodge it. It continues its attack until she gets close enough where it decides to have her for lunch. But Komoko uses all her brains to force as much poison as she can down his throat, resulting in a new fourth brain being formed. However, the dragon manages to destroy it with a fireball while knocking her off the ceiling. The two monsters stare each other down, then the dragon uses fire spin to destroy her, but Komoko suddenly comes from the ceiling to rain some pain down on the creature, before coming down to throw hands with it to finish the fight. She reveals that the spider that landed on the rock was an illusion she used so she can get the drop on him, but realizes there's a light coming from the pond as the dragon reappears for his revenge. Our little spider decides to go all out and summons her two brains to use abyssal magic to call upon the Gok Gok Gate, which opens to suck in everything until only the flame dragon remains. He flies at her to deal the final blow, but she jumps up to bust her webbings all over him, then finishes the fight with one more strike to send it to Dragon Heaven. She levels up to heal and drags her prey to a more suitable place to consume, but she senses someone using teleportation to arrive at her location. An administrator appears from her portal and tries to talk to her, but she can't understand him, so he takes out a phone to talk to someone who convinces him to leave her alone. He throws down the phone and leaves. Dee reveals that she was the one who gave her the wisdom skill and says that she enjoys watching her on her adventures. Komoko tries to ask her to explain, but she leaves without answering. Back over to Shun's home. We see him running to meet his brother. They greet each other, but Sue seems troubled, so Julius tells Shun to look after her. Julius explained that he will be going to the front lines to fight the demons in case a war breaks out, but Shun seems worried, so the tank steps up and says he will defend Julius no matter what. They notice that Faye has gotten bigger and reveals that 15 years ago they found Faye's egg after burning down Komoko's home and forcing her to run away. He tells Shun that he doesn't want a war, but if the demons fork around they are gonna find out. Over to the demon realm. We find the demon lord starting a meeting. All her commanders begins preparing for war, but one of them begins questioning why she's in charge, so another commander steps up to confront him. Their argument escalates into a fight, so the demon lord paralyzes them with her webs and threatens to use abyss magic the next time they're out of line. Seeing that everyone is organized, she declares war against the world and dismisses them. She begins talking with Dragon Bro and apologizes to Shun because they have to smoke his brother. Shun sits in class where he suddenly gains the hero title and freaks out because the only way he can get it is if his brother has fallen in battle. He goes to his father and tells him of the new title he has gotten, so everyone begins to grieve the loss of Julius. Shun's brother begins to console him, but the other says it's wiser to now talk about their kingdom's future. The king agrees and explains that he likely passed while fighting demons when a guard comes in to say that 8 of their fortresses has been attacked and 1 was completely massacred by a queen spider. They decide to keep Shun's title a secret to not drop the morale of the soldiers by spreading news of Julius' eviction from the planet, and commands him to go into hiding until his time to be announced as the new hero. At one of the 8 fort, we see a battle that was won by the humans but at a great cost. The Archmage explains that no matter what humans do, they can't win against monsters. He explains that 15 years ago he entered a dungeon with his comrades to investigate why so many of the monsters have been fleeing the dungeon to attack humans. They travel until one of the soldiers get trapped in webs. They try to cut it but it doesn't work, so the mage cast a powerful fire magic to burn it all away. They walk through the nest when they encounter Komoko, who is less than pleased that they destroyed her home. She rages and goes down to block their way out, then uses appraisal on all of them, so the mage uses appraisal on her as well, but she puts an end to that. He realizes that the monster was fleeing the dungeon because of her power, so the soldiers draw their weapons as Komoko gives them a pass to hell. The knight hits the mage, so he stops freaking out, then tells him to prepare a teleportation circle. The knight summons 4 of his Pokemon to do battle with our lil monster. He makes the Murkra use air cutter, but it has no effect, so he makes Magikarp use water gun. Komoko dodges the attack but gets knocked down while the tiger pounces. She decides to use her Gravity Eye to flatten them on the ground and copies Murkra's air cutter to defeat it. He tries to command his Torterra, but she already sent him to the Promised Neverland. The knight summons more defenseless animal to distract Komoko with her favorite activity, until only 2 of them is left. She charges a spear to disarm the mage and makes a hole in the knight, right before they can teleport away. At the base, they call for a doctor to appear so they can be healed. Like the video. If you liked the video, subscribe for more, and thanks for watching. Stay swifty.